Hey, it has been a minute since I've made a video. Hi, hello, good morning or good evening whenever you are watching this. I hope you are doing well. My name is Catherine, and today we are doing a summer reading wrap-up. It's been a while since I made a video. A lot of things have happened in my life since then. I'm currently in between places. I'm staying at my parents' house for the time being. I have a new second job where I am working at a bookstore. Literally a dream come true. And bookish wise, I am no longer in a reading slump, really. I was in a really bad one for a while, but I have decided to stop reading books. Crazy, I know. I have found that my enjoyment of books has definitely increased since I have decided to stop putting a star rating related to what I'm reading. It just, in general, has been so much better. So that is something that you are going to notice in this reading wrap-up. My last wrap-up was end of June, so it was my June reading wrap-up. So I am going to be talking about all the books that I have read since then to now, which it is currently like mid-September. I did put a poll on my Instagram saying like, hey, what videos do you want to see? Here's some ideas. And so many of you wanted to see my wrap-up, which just makes me so happy because I have missed talking about all the books that I've been reading. All right, so there's a lot of books in here, so let's just dive right into it. Again, you will notice that I have no star ratings related to my books, so you're just gonna have to get the vibe of what I thought of these books based on what I'm saying about them, which honestly is probably going to be a lot more accurate than any sort of star rating because my rating system was so arbitrary. There was no rhyme or reason to what stars I was giving things, so here we go. Let's start with some stats. So obviously, no ratings, but since June I have read a total of 23 books. I have had one DNF. I know, hold for applause. Thank you, thank you. I can DNF books sometimes. Genre-wise, I've read 7 contemporary romances, 7 historical romances, 1 fantasy romance, 2 eroticas, 4 YA contemporaries, 1 YA historical, 1 mythology retelling, and 1 graphic novel. So quite a variety. There's also been quite a few books that I've been picking up more because of my new job. The bookstore that I'm working at is 100% romance books, so I've been reading a lot of romances that I wouldn't normally pick up just so that I can be like informed when people ask me opinions about books. It's been scary, but it's been fun. Without further ado, let's get right into the books. I am going to be talking about these by genre, not order that I read them. So we are going to start off with my contemporary romances. First, I read Sweetest in the Gale by Olivia Dade. This is the last of the There's Something About Marysburg series. This is kind of like a novella with 3 stories in one, which is really fun. And it is definitely on the more emotional side. Just in general, all the stories are a lot more like, The first story is about 2 English teachers. It deals with loss and also kind of love languages, which I really enjoyed. The second story is about a math teacher who is mentoring a new art teacher to the school and opposites attract type deal. Also there is a low-key kind of mystery of what happened to the last art teacher. And the third story is a fake relationship / 2 best friends have to get married so that the one can have his health insurance because she finds out she has breast cancer, which was very emotional. Overall, I did really enjoy all the stories. I will say, like, with these short stories, you don't get as emotionally attached to the characters, but I do love Olivia Dade's writing. I feel like she does a really good job of balancing romance with kind of the hard-hitting emotional stuff, and this one definitely had that. The next book that I read was Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellfleur. This is very, very loosely based on Pride and Prejudice. It is about Darcy, a no-nonsense actuary, and Elle, who is an astrologer. It's a sapphic romance, which I am always here for. It has fake dating where the two of them have to pretend that they are dating in order to please Darcy's brother, who also happens to be Elle's newest business partner. He runs a dating app, and Elle is adding the element of putting people's astrological signs together, which is really fun. I really loved their relationship. I just felt like they had a lot of great, grumpy character with sunshine character, and a lot of push and pull with each other in terms of again, their opposites attract and their banter and everything. So I really, really enjoyed that one. Next, I read Real by Kennedy Ryan. This book, I think it was Manda from Ginger Snap Reads recommended I read this at one point, and girl, I'm very glad I did, but also I cried a lot. It is about Cannon Holt, who is looking for an actress to play the lead in his newest biopic about a artist during the Harlem Renaissance. He ends up finding Neva Saint on her Broadway debut. She's an understudy for a show on Broadway, and this is her big moment, and she is seen by Cannon Holt, and he's like, I must have her as my lead actress. And of course, the attraction between them is undeniable. There's a lot of forbidden romance because, director, actress, they aren't supposed to date. He already has a reputation of he has dated past lead actresses in his shows before, and it has not worked out. It is so emotional. Poor Neva really just goes through it in this one. Also, something that I really, really loved in this one was that it really talked about the importance of theater and art and creating authentic storytelling, and I feel like so many books don't quite get just what it means to be a storyteller, and which is ironic because there isn't that much of a difference between writers and actors. It's just the medium in which they tell their stories. But I feel like this one really, really captured it so well. I totally fell in love with it, and also just the relationship between Cannon and Neva is so... The chemistry is so undeniably there. It's so good. Next, I read The Bride Test by Helen Huang. I knew I had to read this one. I can't believe it took me so long to, because Kiss Quotient, the first book in the series, was one of my first romance books, adult romance books, and I absolutely loved it. It just took me a while to get to The Bride Test, and I'm so glad that I read it. It is about Kai, who is autistic, and he feels like he is incapable of emotion. He feels like he is incapable of love and also sadness due to some experiences that he had when he was younger. His mom ends up finding him, this woman, Esme, in Vietnam, and bringing her over to be a bride. Esme is just really looking to better her life as well as her daughter's life. And so she takes this opportunity to start going to school, going to some adult night classes, things like that. I absolutely loved Kai and Esme's chemistry. I think they had some really great chemistry, and I loved the way that the book really dealt with how people express love and different emotions, because not everyone expresses it in the same way, and especially when you're neurodivergent, it may come across differently than if you're neurotypical. This one definitely isn't as spicy as the Kiss Quotient, and also my biggest problem was it so heavily relied on miscommunication. That was the main problem in this book, was just the sheer amount of miscommunication between Esme and Kai, which isn't my favorite, and I wish that there were some other elements to it. But overall, I did enjoy the book. I wanted something a little different. Next, we have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Oh wait, I actually have a physical copy of this here. Don't have a lot of books with me, but I do have this one. I was gifted this book by the Roomies Digest. Thank you so much, Mom Christine. I think I got it for my birthday. Yeah, they gave it to me for my birthday in March. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. This is an office place romance between two secretary assistant people to the co-CEOs of this publishing house, something like that. They are the complete opposites. Lucy is a certified weird girl. I love a good weird girl. And we have Josh, who is very like straightforward. Everything has its place in his desk, things like that. Yeah, they are both kind of competing to get the job of not CEO. They're both trying to get a promotion, basically. And yeah, romance ensues. I was definitely hesitant about this, and I still have some mixed feelings overall about the relationship because it is very clear from the start that it is toxic with a capital T. Oof. But also, I kind of low-key loved it. There was a lot of really great chemistry. My one wish with the book was I wish that we got Josh's POV because I feel like that would make things very different. I feel like seeing things from his perspective and not just from Lucy's kind of biased perspective would make it not as bad. That's just my belief, because there are certain moments where like he does really terrible things and you're like, why did he do that? But then he'll say something and you're like, okay, interesting. I do just love Lucy. I think she's so fun. I think she's a great character. The next book that I read is The Last Tang Standing by, who is this by? Lauren Ho. This is about Andrea Tang, who is the last of her cousins to be single. She's super career-oriented and is trying to make partner at her law firm, which is a job that she hates, but she does it because it's a respectable job. However, she might get written out of her very rich aunt's will if she remains single. She also has a rivalry to get partner with one of her coworkers, and there is a lot of sexual tension between the two of them. It was okay. I didn't love it, honestly. I wanted so much more from this book. It very much, I hate to be like, it reminds me of Bridget Jones's Diary. Like, I mean, that's in the description. It's like Bridget Jones's Diary. It was a little too much like Bridget Jones's Diary, where I hated Andrea. I thought that she was so annoying and so obnoxious, and I couldn't stand her. Yeah, so that was that one. Wasn't a big fan. The next book that I read was One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. This is about Bea, who is a plus-size fashion blogger who, after criticizing a bachelorette type show for being very, conventionally attractive, straight-sized type thing, she ends up becoming the next Bachelorette. It's not called Bachelorette, but it is Bachelorette. There is a lot more that happens in this than like the plot line of The Bachelorette, but I really didn't care about any of that. I didn't care about a lot of the things in this book. I wanted to like it a lot more than I did. Unfortunately, did not vibe with it, especially with our main character Bea. I felt like her development and her growth was so slow paced. Overall, the story itself was slow paced. We didn't even get to the reality TV show aspect of it until 35-40% of the way through the book. I expected it to take up a lot more time. Also, because of the, style of the reality TV where there's like the multiple guys and one her, I felt like we didn't really get to connect with any of the love interests on a deep level. And it was pretty obvious from like the second date who the winner was going to be. It might be something that fans of The Bachelor and Bachelorette will enjoy. I am not, so that probably wasn't the best idea for me to read this book. I will say I really like the fact that there was like a multimedia aspect of it. There was a lot of like phone logs, some like emails, and like social media post type things that happened that I thought were a lot of fun and added a good amount to the story. Yeah, it was a good time for the most part. I just didn't really deeply care about any of the characters, so yeah. Next, we are moving on to the historical romances. First, I got an arc and got to read Bombshell by Sarah McLean before it came out. It is out now, so run, go read this book because I loved it. This is the first book in the newest series of Sarah McLean's called Hell's Bells. Hell's Bells. It follows Cecily and Caleb, who we actually meet in a previous series of Sarah MacLean's. We have heard stories from two of Cecily's other sisters in Day of the Duchess, and the Rogue Not Taken, I believe, was the one with her other sister, which I very much enjoyed. And I already knew that I would love Caleb and Cecily's romance from the Day of the Duchess, because it was just already the banter in that so good. And this did not disappoint. I want to be Cecily when I grow up. I really like that her books tend to be kind of grittier, on the grittier side, even though it is still about like the upper class, the ton. I should probably talk about what it's about. Basically, Cecily is a part of a group of women who kind of take revenge on men who have wronged women, which, here for that. Caleb is Cecily's sister's business partner, and he is very much in love with Cecily, but can't admit it because, you know, it's his friend's sister. Overall, their romance is just so good. They have such great chemistry and banter, and they have that push-pull going on of like, we can't be together, but we love each other, that sort of thing. And one of my favorite parts of all of Sarah MacLean's books is that the, hero will have like a nickname for the heroine. In this one, he calls her Athena because she's like a warrior goddess. And I love that. Next, I have started reading Tessa Dare's books. I knew that this was coming since I have already read all of Sarah MacLean's books, and they have very like kind of similar, I wouldn't say writing styles per se, but their subject matter tends to be fairly similar. So I am almost done with the first kind of series in Tessa Dare's romance universe, which is called Spindle Cove. So this is the Spindle Cove series. There are a couple books as well as novellas in there, which I love the novellas. I think the novellas are really fun. So the first one is called A Night to Surrender. It follows Susanna, who is kind of in charge of Spindle Cove. The idea behind Spindle Cove, or as a lot of the men of the town called it, Spinster Cove, is it is a place for women who are either sickly or, have different interests than marrying, things like that, where they all just go to live at the seaside and either get healthier or just find a place of belonging. So Susanna's kind of in charge of Spindle Cove. However, Lord Rycliffe comes to speak to her father because he is part of the military. He's kind of granted a honorary earldom, which is a thing, and has to form a militia in this very small village that mostly has women. There's a lot of like rivalry and a lot of like trying to one-up each other, which I absolutely love. I think their romance was a lot of fun. Rycliffe is almost right away just a hardcore sim for Susanna, and she is just so like tough and in control of things, which I love to see. There is some like fun hurt comfort happening. The two of them have to like comfort each other. It's very sweet, and they have great banter, so love that one. Then I read Once Upon a Winter's Eve, which is the first novella. It's a cute, fun novella. There isn't like a ton to it. It's just fun. It has like a second chance romance type thing going on, and it's a good time. Second book is A Week to Be Wicked. This one's about Minerva Highwood, who convinces Lord Payne to take her to a geological convention type deal to present her findings of what seems to be a dinosaur fossil, although I don't know if dinosaurs were a thing around this time. They didn't know that dinosaurs were a thing, from what it seems like. It has some really great like on the road trip elements to it, and they are the most complete opposites, but they're like, again, banter. I feel like Tessa Dare just really nails the banter anytime there's any sort of banter. 10 out of 10. Love it. Then we have A Lady by Midnight, the third book of Spindle Cove, which follows Kate, who is the music teacher of Spindle Cove, and the kind of mysterious is that what he is? Yeah, Corporal Thorn. He's very serious. He's kind of, a brute type dude. This one probably wasn't my favorite of them. I still think they had good chemistry, but I wasn't a big fan of Thorn. He was a little too aggressive for my taste. What I did really like about it was Kate doesn't know where she came from. She was an orphan. And we have people who she thinks might be her family come into town, and they're trying to figure out, is she one of them? And they're really weird, and I really love them, and I really hope that Tessa Dare writes more about this family, because they're a good time. But yeah, I ended up liking that a lot more than the actual romance of it, because I just didn't really like Thorn, which was a shame because I liked Kate. Then we had the next novella, which is Beauty and the Blacksmith, and it was good. It definitely was great as a novella. I think that if it had been a full book, it just would have been too much. It would have dragged on. But it the story fit perfectly in a novella. It follows Diana Highwood, who is kind of the beauty of the family and has always been treated very gently because she tends to be kind of sick. And then there's the Spindle Cove blacksmith, and there is just instant connection between the two. I really just loved kind of the protectiveness that they had over each other. I thought that it was really, really sweet. Finally, in the Spindle Cove series, I have just finished Any Duchess Will Do, which is about the Duke of Halford, whose mother takes him to Spindle Cove to choose out a wife because she needs him to get married. He ends up picking out Pauline, who is a barmaid, and is like, if you can teach her how to be a duchess, I'll marry her. It has very much a My Fair Lady type element to it, only better because we actually like this dude. Not a big fan of how My Fair Lady goes. This one, probably my favorite of Spindle Cove so far. There's one more novella and one more. But Griff is so sweet and so soft and desperately needs a hug. Pauline is very much she knows what she wants. She's gonna get the money in order to start her own bookstore. Love that for her. Also taking care of her sister, who is autistic, and they come from an abusive household, so she is very much the protector of her family. There is a lot of hurt comfort that happens in this book, and I was crying while reading it. It was very good. And again, banter between Pauline and Griff was 10 out of 10, top tier. There is a library scene that just makes me swoon. So good. So yeah, this one definitely so far my favorite of the Spindle Cove. There is one more book in the series. However, it's the fifth book in Spindle Cove and also the fourth book in another one of her series. It crosses over, so I have to finish the something Castles series first. But that is all of the Tessa Dare books. I did read another historical romance. I started Wicked Intentions by Elizabeth Hoyt. Elizabeth Hoyt. And I didn't love it. It is about Lazarus, who is a Duke ? He's some higher class, and he is looking for the killer of his mistress. We have Temperance, who is in charge of a foundling home, an orphanage. He ends up asking for her help because she is more familiar with St. Giles, the area, in order to help find the killer. And of course, there's an attraction there. I wasn't a big fan of it, though. I felt like their romance was really weird and awkward. I did not like Lazarus very much. Yeah, some of the scenes were just very why did we have to write it like this? At this point, I am very hesitant to read historical romances that are written before 2012 because there's just some dubious elements in any of the historical romances written before that time. Newer ones tend to be a bit more progressive. Older ones, not so much. All right. Then we move into the fantasy romances. I've read one of those and I'm halfway through another one. I read Rhapsodic by Laura Thalessa? Not positive how to pronounce her name. I think it's Thalessa. It is about a girl who is part siren. So she had killed her father. She ends up making a deal with a fairy known as the Bargainer in order to make that disappear and change her life. They end up forming this friendship. However, something happens and they don't see each other for several years until he comes back to collect on the bargains the deals that they made. Is this book good? No. Did I have a great time reading it? Absolutely. The dialogue wasn't the best. I just really had a good time with the world, the general overall world of it. If you're looking for some fairy romance that involves, wings and things, this is a good one. It's a great one. And I will say I read this book 100% because of fan art. And I saw this fan art and I said, this book will hurt me. Can't wait to read it. So yeah, great time. Is it a good book? No. Did I have a lot of fun? Absolutely. Please ignore the fact that it is now, in fact, nighttime and several hours have obviously passed. Moving on, the next books that I read, where are we? Where did I even leave off? Erotica. Okay, so I did read 2 erotica books. Fascinating genre. I thought it would be like the romance. Nope, it's not. So first of all, my 1D and F was, what was it even called? Delta of Venus by Anise Nin. It was interesting. I don't know. I didn't really vibe with the writing that much, and I DNF'd like 10% of the way through. I was barely started. From what I've heard, it's something where you have to read it from more of an intellectual standpoint, and I don't read to think, so that didn't happen. Then I read Theirs for the Night by Katie Robert. I actually really enjoyed this one. It's a novella that starts off the rest of the series. It's super short. Best way I can describe it is plot. What plot? Is there a plot? There is a little bit. It is a girl goes to a club, meets a prince and his bodyguard, and spends the night with them. Yeah, that's kind of the only plot that there is. I am interested in continuing the series just because there was like a little chapter snippet of the first chapter of the next book and it kind of sounded interesting. I don't know. We'll see. And then I read Your Dad Will Do, also by Katie Robert. I really do want to read Neon God just because I'm very curious because it's so popular right now. And that's also by Katie Robert, but there is like a 5 million year wait at the library. So I'm reading some of her other books. So Your Dad Will Do, again, no plot. The plot is that girl goes to seduce the dad of her ex-fiance. Her fiance cheated on her. That's it. That is all there is. Again, I would have liked a little more plot from that one. I didn't expect much from the novella, the one before the Theirs from the Night, because I mean it's a novella, it's super short. This one I kind of expected a little bit more. And I just, didn't feel attached to the characters. I didn't really care about the characters at all. So like, why should I care what's happening? That's just my general feelings. I like a little bit more. Just a little bit more character development and plot. Okay, let's take a completely 360 turn from that and go into YA contemporaries. First, I read Blackout by various authors. You have Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. There is a blackout in New York, and all of these teens find romance in some way on their way to a block party. I just thought it was really fun. There's like kind of one story, Tiffany D. Jackson. So Tiffany D. Jackson, hers kind of spans throughout the book, and then everyone else's has like one chapter, and they all kind of come together in the end, which is really fun. I love those kinds of what's the word I'm looking for? Anthology? Sure, anthology. I love those kinds of anthologies where like all the stories are connected in some way. So that was a lot of fun. Just overall very, very cute YA contemporary. Had a great time reading it. Next, I read Love is a Revolution by Renee Watson. So it follows a girl who goes to an open mic with her cousin. Her cousin is part of like this activist group, and ends up like falling for the guy who's the MC, and she ends up telling some lies about like her being vegan and like being really involved in the community, that sort of thing. And of course it doesn't go great. Overall, it was okay. I didn't honestly love the main character, but more than that, I also did not like her friends. I felt like her friends just weren't very good to her, and I know she like made some mistakes, but also even before that, there wasn't like a great understanding between like her and her cousin and her best friend. I don't know. It was weird. It was cute, but wasn't really my favorite. I also had some problems with like basically the brand of activism where it's like if you weren't doing the most, you weren't doing anything. And I just feel like that's not accurate. So yeah, that was that. I had fun reading it. It was a quick, easy read, and there were some really cute moments, but overall wasn't my favorite. Next, I reread Aristotle and Dante Discovers the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire-Sayens. This is my 4th time reading this book, and every single time I read it, I just fall more in love with the story, with Ari and Dante. If you don't know what it's about, it kind of spans 2 years. It's about this boy named Aristotle who meets a boy named Dante, and it's about their friendship and their discovery of like their identity and who they are, and they're figuring out their sexualities and things like that. And it just is so beautiful. I love both of their characters. I love Benjamin Alire-Sayens. His writing is just so beautiful and lyrical and poetic in the way that he describes certain things, and he talks about definitely moments of adolescence where you're just like, oh my god, yeah, but I remember that feeling, and even now I still know that feeling. I am so excited for the next book that is going to be in the series that's been a long time coming. I'm nervous also, so yeah, but I'm very glad that I reread this book because I just think it is still one of my all-time favorite books. It still makes me cry like a baby. I was feeling a bit slumpy, which is one of the reasons why I picked it up. So yeah, really enjoyed my reread. Then I read Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. This is young adult, but it does kind of border on new adult, honestly. There's just certain subject matters that I feel like are more on the mature side. I would definitely say it's more for 17 plus versus 15, 16. It's about a girl named Juliet who is from the Bronx. She comes out to her parents. It does not go well, and she ends up going on this internship with a feminist writer in Portland, and so she goes to help research for the summer with this writer. She learns a lot about like the LGBT community, and also kind of the white feminism versus intersectional feminism, things like that, especially in Portland. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting book, just talking about how oftentimes in activism we tend to exclude certain groups of people, and how important it is to actually listen to marginalized voices. So yeah, I think that that's a really, really great and important read. I also really enjoyed Juliet's journey too, of her figuring out her identity and her relationship with the world around her and who she wants to have like in her circles. Yeah, really interesting. Really like this one. Next, my YA historical fiction. I read Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This is a book that I have been wanting to read forever. I remembered seeing like a description of it before it even came out and being like, this sounds great. It is about a girl named Lily who is Chinese American. She is growing up in Chinatown in San Francisco, and she is figuring out her identity. She ends up going to a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club to see a male impersonator. And she discovers she is definitely not straight. She ends up having a thing with this girl at school, but of course it's in the 1950s, so definitely not well received by her family. On top of that, of course, there is also the Red Scare, so she has to deal with kind of the racism around that. It's a really incredible book. I loved it. I was reading it on the plane when I was coming back from New York and just crying because, oh my gosh, it is so hard-hitting. But yeah, a really beautiful, like, coming of age novel. Next, I read a mythology retelling, one of my favorite things to do, and I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is the story of Ariadne. It is a retelling from Ariadne's point of view. If you don't know the myth of Ariadne, she is the one who helped Theseus defeat the Minotaur. She is the daughter of King Minos. She helps Theseus kill the Minotaur with the, he promised that he'd take her away, and he ends up, there's kind of two ways the story goes. This one, he abandons her on this island where she is found by Bacchus or Dionysus, whichever way you want to go. So because this story is told from her perspective, it's really interesting how the way it talks about how a lot of the times the women in these myths, in these stories, are the ones who take the blame for men. Basically, they're the ones who are punished for men's mistakes, and how they're the ones who have to suffer even though they did nothing wrong. I think it's a really beautifully written story. I absolutely loved Jennifer Saint's writing. I think it's very similar to Madeline Miller, if you've read Circe. Similar vibes to that, just in the way that it tells the story. It feels almost like a memoir more than a story, an epic tale. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I purposefully bought this edition, the UK edition, because I think it's so pretty. All right, last but certainly not least, I read Paper Girls, graphic novel. Does it have the author's name on the front? Oh, I don't remember. Okay, Brian K. Vaughan is the writer, and Cliff Chiang, Matt Wilson, Jared K. Fletcher. A lot of men for a book that's about girls. Interesting. Anyway, it's a really fun graphic novel, super short, and it is about these girls who are on a paper route, and then suddenly something happens and everyone disappears, and then there's aliens. Pretty wild. It's a good time. It's set in the 80s, I believe. Yeah, 88. This is for 12-year-old. I don't know if they really act 12. I'm curious to see the rest of this series. I'll probably pick them up at some point just because they're quick reads. But yeah, it was fun. Fun, short graphic novel. Super weird. There was definitely times where I was like, what is even going on? But the artwork is really pretty. So there's that. And that is the end of all the books that I have read during this summer. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite book was that you read this summer. Also, how are you doing? I've missed y'all. Leave some comments down below. Tell me what your favorite book was that you read this summer and what book you're looking forward to in the fall. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, bye!